How's it going, everybody? Okay, so tonight, kind of just want to talk about like things that are on my mind. So I made a video the other day about remembering what it was like to beg my children's father to hang out with me. And that is almost unbelievable to look back and remember that used to be my life at one point. I honestly can't even believe that is how I was. Like, I literally used to beg for his attention. Hi, how's it going? Yeah, I literally used to beg for him to hang out with me and his children. Like, I don't even understand. Hi, how's it going? I don't even understand like how that didn't spark red flags for me. You know, the fact that he didn't want to hang out with me and his children. Like, I don't know why in the moment. I think it was the trauma bond. And I think it had a lot to do with me falling in love with the idea of who he was. But I didn't have any self-love at all. Like, I did not understand my self-worth in any form. Because growing up, I don't think I even understood what self-love and self-worth was either. So when he would disrespect me or, you know, say, I'm the one who makes the money, like I'm the breadwinner, like I deserve to go hang out with my friends. I worked a long week and you did nothing. And he would say that stuff to me all the time when, you know, I was pregnant with my third. I had my son who was 3 at the time. And then I had my daughter who was just a baby. She was just 6 months old. I mean, I was doing a lot. I was trying to pick up nanny shifts. I was trying to do anything I could while also being pregnant and parenting my 2 kids. But nothing I ever did was enough for him. Like, I could have done anything and it was never enough. And I would do a lot. Like, I would always pack his lunch every single morning for work. And, you know, he was an electrician and I would write like little notes and be like, you know, have a great day. And, like sometimes I'd get like really into it and like say how much I loved him and how grateful I am that we're a family and that like, and it was like, I was almost trying to convince myself that this was healthy when it really was not, healthy at all. But and then because of the trauma bond and the cycle of abuse, you know, if at any point he would acknowledge that I wrote him a letter, or, you know, like in his lunch, he'd be like, you're awesome. Like, you're the best. He'd say, you know, I was opening up my lunch today and all the guys were like, wow, you have that. Like, not everybody has that. And I mean, he didn't really say it like that, but it was along the lines of that. And I'd be like, wow, he actually notices me. And maybe the people at work are starting to get him to realize and notice me and notice what I'm doing for him. And it would almost give me like a false sense of hope, like, oh, this is gonna be okay. And anytime I would think it was gonna be okay, like if I would get like that little sliver of hope that it was going to be okay, I would hold on to that for dear life. Like I'd be like, D'Angela, see, he's a good guy. Like, see, he notices me. Like, he appreciates my love. See, like, and then I would like roll with that for as long as I possibly could. But then he would show me his true colors again shortly after. And it always came down to his friends, or, you know, he was the breadwinner, or his marijuana usage. Like, nothing I ever did or would like say we should do. Like, I would try to come up with like, okay, it's the weekend, it's your day off. Like, let's go to a carnival. Like, let's go to the Cape. Let's do, and I'd come up with these ideas of like, let's do this. And he'd shoot it down like every single time. He'd be like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to go be with my friends. Like, I just worked a long week. I get up every single morning at 4:30 in the morning so that I can pay for this house. Like, I don't want to do any of that. I want to rest. I want to, and I'm like, well, don't you want to be a family? Like, we bought this house, you know, together. And he didn't even want to buy the house. But what was really confusing is like, he would say how much he didn't want to buy the house, but then he followed through and bought the house. So I'd get like these mixed messages all the time. He'd talk about how he didn't want to be with me, but then he'd come over and like come to, at the time I was living at my apartment, and he'd come over to my apartment. I mean, he only wanted one thing, which was my physical appearance. Like, he wanted a sexual relationship with me, and that's like all I was good for him. Me being kind and everything was just like a bonus for him. And then every now and then he would kind of be like, you're such a sweetheart. Like, you're the best. I don't know of any other woman who would be as kind and compassionate as you. And then again, I would hold on to that, hang on to that, and be like, yeah, he loves me. It's like, he did not love me. But growing up, that's what I was exposed to. My mom and my dad, like, they hate each other. Like, to this day. I mean, I don't have a relationship with them anymore, thankfully, so I don't have to deal with that anymore. But the last I was around my parents, they hated each other. But then within the same second, they'd love each other. And it made no sense whatsoever. Like, it did not make any sense to me. They would literally, like, curse at each other, scream at each other. You know, my dad would just completely dehumanize my mother. And within the same moment, sometimes, not all the time, he'd come up behind her and just like hug her and like kiss her and like call her the nicknames he would call her and just be like, oh, I'm sorry. And then my mother would have this look on her face like, get away from me. And then he'd keep kissing her and loving her, and then she'd be like, okay, it's fine, just don't do it again, like, you're ridiculous. And then all of a sudden there goes the honeymoon phase again, and, you know, they'd be fine again. And, you know, but that wouldn't last long. It'd last like a couple hours, honestly, before they hated each other again. But I was taught by my mother to like put up with that stuff. So then there she would go and say, okay, well, let's watch a movie together. And then, you know, they'd go and watch a movie together, and he'd even be making fun of her while they were watching a movie. Like, if she would comment about something in the movie, which she would do a lot, she'd be like, oh, or like that. If she made like any type of response to the movie, he'd be like, can you stop it? And he'd like pause it and be like, I have to start the movie all over again now because you spoke. And, you know, it's like, what? So here I am, a kid, watching this stuff, like, okay, I guess this is how I'm supposed to behave too. Like, I guess I have to really be quiet and not say anything and that was a marriage. Like, that was the introduction of what a marriage was supposed to be like for me. So I'm watching that as a baby, toddler, like teenager, being taught that this is how you're supposed to have people treat you. I was not taught that I was worthy of more. Like, I was not taught that I deserved more. So that played a huge role in like every relationship that I had ever gotten in. I'm talking like even friendships. Like, I would just have like friends walk all over me, and I didn't realize that they were walking all over me. But they absolutely were, you know. For some reason, this memory is popping into my head, so I'll discuss it. So I've mentioned that I was heavily addicted to marijuana. And that's a controversial topic. A lot of people do not think you can get addicted to marijuana, but I absolutely was. Like, so addicted to marijuana. I would do anything for marijuana. Like, it was not healthy whatsoever. And I think that had a lot to do with my self-sabotaging and my numbing and not realizing that I had mental health issues. And so that was like how I numbed myself, and that was my escape. So anyway, I think I had just finally broken up with one of my abusive exes. And he was like not as abusive as my children's father, but like second to him. So anyway, I finally broke up with this guy, and I was heavily addicted to marijuana. And I remember getting marijuana from somebody. I don't remember who, but I was so addicted that I would buy it in like bulk. Like, I would buy it in, I don't even remember what it was called now because I've been sober for 6 years, but I think it was like a half or something, like a half. I don't know. It was a lot. I would spend hundreds of dollars on this. And so I remember buying it from somebody, walking around with this, and I don't remember how I even came about this, but I think I was trying to like meet up with friends that, hey Liz, friends that like weren't my friends anymore. Like, I was just desperate for attention. So I think I was looking to hang out with friends that I used to be friends with, just because I was bored and in need of attention, and I had a half ounce of marijuana. So I was like, I reached out to people from my hometown that, again, I wasn't friends with. I used to be friends with, but I wasn't friends with at the time. And they were like, yeah, whatever, come over. And because I told them, oh, I have a half. And they're like, okay, let's take advantage of D'Angela. Like, literally, that's probably what they were thinking. So I go to their house, and they're like, oh, what kind is it? Like, can I see it? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like 20. I'm like 20 maybe, like 19. No, yeah. I'm like 20, 21. And yeah, I just like give it to them. And they were like 8 guys. And they're all like, oh, wow. And I'm sure every single time they looked, they like grabbed a piece of it, you know? And then, but I'm like completely oblivious. Like, I'm just like, oh, they like me. Like, yeah, we're hanging out. Like, I literally thought that. Like, that's how much I was not okay. That's how much I needed attention. That's how much I needed, like, human interaction. Even though they were all making fun of me. And they were all, like, taking advantage. Like, they, literally, all of them, it went through all of them. They all just like grabbed it, and they were like, oh oh yeah, this is blah, blah, blah. Pass it to the next guy. Oh yeah, this, and I'm not even paying attention to the fact that they're taking from it. I'm just like so happy we're even having a conversation, and they let me come over after like not being friends with them for like 3 years. Like, so yeah, they didn't take all of it, enough for me to notice, but then like, I don't know what happened. We didn't even like hang out. I think I just left after. Like they were like, oh, we gotta go, like we're going to some party or something. And I was like, all right guys, like thanks for having me over. Like I don't even know what I was doing. And then I left and got in my car and like didn't even notice it. I think a part of me was kind of like, oh, it kind of looks a little smaller, but like no, they wouldn't do that. Like never heard from them again. All of those guys were just probably like, wow, she's ridiculous. Like we just got all of this free marijuana from her, and I've never talked to them again, but that's definitely what they, and like people throughout my life would just kind of fully take advantage of me because I didn't get it. And I think people knew that I didn't get it. So they were just like, oh, we could totally just, and that plays a role with me being sexually assaulted as well, because when I would be sexually assaulted, so my first situation of my first ever sexual encounter, I was sexually assaulted at 15. So after that happened, I just basically thought I was like dirty, and this is my life now. This is who I am now. This is what I do now. And I just basically like I started self-sabotaging even more than I would have ever realized. So then I thought that this was just a part of who I was, and that's what I do now or whatever. And I obviously figured out that that people liked my physical appearance, and that could get me attention. So that's basically what I used. And so I ended up breaking up with that boyfriend, and he was like really sad about it. And his friends were mad about it too. Like, oh, you're making the worst decision ever. But I don't think that boyfriend even realized that he sexually assaulted me. And I mentioned in my last live, like, he actually apologized to me like a few weeks ago, being like, I should have treated you better. And I think you're actually telling the truth about these things. And I just should have treated you better. And I was like, does he even realize what he's apologizing for? Like, does he even realize what he's even admitting to? And I don't think he does. I don't think a lot of people realize they're being sexually assaulted, or they've sexually assaulted somebody. Which is why I'm trying so hard to like talk about these things and normalize these conversations. Liz. So yeah. So I thought this was just like who I was now. And I knew that people could give me attention and like me and stuff for my physical appearance. So I became very like hypersexual, and I tried to like take control back of my sexuality, even though I didn't know like what I even was as a person. I just know that I was now a sexualized individual at 15. So I took that and ran with it. Now that I'm understanding like what love languages are and stuff, I really do think I needed like attention, like affection, and like touch, as in like a hug. You know, like I needed something that I wasn't getting. And instead of, and this is actually true for many people, sometimes you might just need a hug, and instead of getting a hug, you then go for sex. And yeah, so I mean, I definitely needed a hug most of my teenage life, but instead I would go towards sex. But I did not even want it. again, I wanted like attention and affection and love and a hug, but I didn't grasp that concept. I just was like, somebody's paying attention to me, and you know, they like me, and you know, I knew I had something to offer because they were paying attention to me. So, but because that became my reputation, like D'Angelo will do anything, I really would like do anything. Like in high school, wow, I would do anything. A lot of people who follow me on here now know me from high school. And I wonder what people think of me now. Because in high school, I went from being heavily against marijuana, mad at friends if they would smoke marijuana, to then being coerced into smoking marijuana, becoming addicted to marijuana, doing whatever anyone would tell me. So, you know, back then, I don't know if this is still a thing, but back then when I was in high school, they were like, they would take Poland Spring water bottles and like dump out the water and like put vodka in it. And I went to like a private Catholic school, and that was like the cool thing to do. I would do that in class sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. I would like literally do what anybody told me to do. And then there was a balcony, and I would like, this is ridiculous, but I literally would like meet guys during school hours and say, let's go to the balcony. And I would like do whatever they wanted me to do, even though I did not want to do any of it. I'm like a sophomore, junior, senior. Like I just, you know, if one of my friends who was a girl would have a boyfriend, you know, and somebody told me to make out with her and then make out with the boyfriend and then make out with the girlfriend and the boyfriend at the same time, I'd be like, sure. Like I just like didn't understand what I was doing. So then, because this is who I became, this is this character that I was playing, everybody just passed me around. Like I'm sure they would plan it. I'm sure ahead of time they would literally be like, watch this. And then they'd go right up to me and be like, D'Angela, let's, you know, I was never on a date. I didn't go on dates with people. They would like invite me to their house for like a party or whatever and just like take full advantage of me. But I was never like on a date. Like I've never been on a proper date. I've just, like, it's crazy when I get into it. I'm just like, what did I even do? Like, what was my life? I just did anything for attention. Literally, like, anything for attention. Thank you. I have grown so much, and I am proud. But because I was getting passed along to, like, everybody, and I'm sure they all planned it out, like, yeah, watch this, D'Angela, and I would do it. It continued throughout college. And then, so now when I was in college, that, my mental health was like, I would get panic attacks like every other day. And I went to a small college, so there was like maybe 10 to 12 people in a class. And, you know, needed attention. There were like 3 or 4 girls in my grade. All the rest were guys. At one point, I had gotten with like at least 5 of them. And they all knew it. They all knew. They were all friends. And they would talk about it. They'd be like, oh, did you get with D'Angela too? Like, yeah, I got with her too. And so I'm sitting in class, like trying to learn. You know, ironically, went to school for criminal justice, trying to learn, and then it became high school. Like this is part of why I couldn't have Facebook for so long. Like I ended up deleting my Facebook because they would be online on Facebook and like messaging each other and putting Facebook statuses about how like, oh, D'Angela got with so-and-so last night. Oh, I got with her too, blah, blah, blah. And they'd like, it became high school. Like they literally just started like, I was being like cyberbullied and I didn't know about this. I just heard like snickering happening. And then I'm like, I'm pretty sure they're talking about me, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just paranoid. And then all of a sudden you just hear, he was like the ringleader. You just hear like, ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. And I'm like, is somebody ribbiting? And then one of the friends who was a girl who was in my class literally was like, okay, they're riveting. And they're laughing hysterically, like riveting. So I don't know how I ended up finding out what it actually meant, but they were riveting because I was a frog. They were riveting because I was hopping from one person to the next, to the next, to the next. So that became like my nickname, I guess. I became like a frog. And so anytime people would ribbit, they would be talking about D'Angela. And yeah, that was hard to swallow. And a lot of people, including my family, my sisters, would say I brought it upon myself. Like, you did it to yourself. And it was like, I was hurting. Like, I didn't even know what I was doing. I had no idea what I was doing. I needed a hug. Like, I needed physical touch that was not sexual. I literally just, like, needed somebody to listen to me. I needed somebody to say, I care about you. I needed somebody to tell me that I deserve to love myself. I needed that, and I wasn't getting that. And so that's what I was doing. And it really meant I was getting panic attacks every day in class. I could not listen in class. I was bawling my eyes out, hyperventilating. And meanwhile, I was never diagnosed with depression or anxiety or PTSD. I recently got diagnosed in 2019, 2020. So I'm walking around life not understanding why I'm having panic attacks, why I'm feeling this way. Why do I keep putting myself in traumatic situations for just more trauma to happen? Like, why am I doing this to myself? Nope. All I see is people riveting in class, and I'm like, they're mean. Like, they're mean. I mean, and it doesn't justify me being hypersexual or anything like that, but it all makes sense. Like, I was sexually assaulted at 15. I was physically assaulted growing up. Like, I was around domestic violence. I was born into domestic violence. Like, all of it makes sense now. Like, now that I'm in therapy and I'm talking about all of this stuff and they're explaining everything to me, and I'm like, wow, this makes so much sense. But I was being gaslighted by my entire family and anyone, really. Like, people didn't even realize what they were saying to me. Friends, they were just like, you did this to yourself. And I'd be like, you're right, I did it to myself. But I needed help. And I'm finally getting the help that I've always deserved. I'm finally getting the help. It took me so long and a lot of hurt, and I was ashamed. I'm not ashamed anymore. Like, I can talk about this stuff, and I don't even remember who that person is. Like, I don't remember feeling like that person anymore, if that makes sense. Like, I have all the memories of it, but it doesn't bring me sadness anymore. Like, I remember, like, running out of class and going into the bathroom stall and just bawling my eyes out. And I made friends with people online, being like, I am not okay. this one girl who I still regularly speak to was from Singapore. And I'm like, what's wrong with me? I'm not okay. Like, they're making fun of me in class because of choices I've made. And like that, I just want to go to school. I just want a hug. Like, I just want, and yes, I'm bouncing from person to person, but like nobody's asking me like, are you okay, D'Angela? Like, why are you going from person to person? Like, you're having a panic attack. Like, how can I help you? Nobody came running after me in class to see if I was okay. Like, and then I was just expected to go back into class and they'd all laugh at me again. And like, I needed help. Nobody helped. I finally helped myself. Oh, but this is a great topic, and I think I want to delve more into mental health, and this is a conversation I could keep having. So thank you for joining. Thank you for listening later. Have a great night. Remember that you're loved, and you're worthy, and you're beautiful. Bye.